The future of collective or emerging collective intelligence sounds like something very futuristic, something very out of a Steven Spielberg movie. But it really isn't. You know, the collective intelligence actually started about 200,000 years ago, one could argue. Maybe you couldn't come up with other examples, but about 200,000 years ago, something very interesting happened. The human brain developed the ability to map light waves into something that we are referred to commonly now as colors. Before that, humans did not see colors. Colors is something very recent, and as you know, there are no colors in the universe. The universe is black and white, and shades of gray in between. There is absolutely no color in the entire universe. We're making this all up. We're inventing this. And a neuroscientist told me once it's actually invented in the emotional part of our brain. And what it actually did and why this evolutionary process actually took place was for humanoids at that time to find easier food and other humanoids that were suitable for procreation. So by being able to easier identify things through colors and get to them, remember there is not a lot of food on this planet at that time. No? We don't know what to eat, half of what we eat we die from. So we have to still learn about, what these things are that we can use. But something very interesting happens, and that is that because of it, nutrition becomes good enough, suddenly, and plentiful enough, suddenly, that children meet their grandparents. They start living long enough where they not every time, every generation have to learn everything completely new from scratch. But actually there is knowledge transfer from two generations out. And so now you begin to preserve knowledge. You are now begin to create something that is collective knowledge, collective intelligence. Because you learn something, you pass it on. You learn something, you pass it on. And so if you do that over generations forward, all of a sudden you are now building very important constructs such as families, tribes, or families, and so on. And from that point on forward, we see a rapid development of how humans are progressing. They start to build tools, they discover copper, they discover iron, they discover all kinds of things. They use them, they make iron tools, and so on. And that results into even better nutrition and into even more things, and so on. As we go on and we have learned now to make tools and we have now learned to build ships and all kinds of stuff, we are also creating something that's called networks. For example, we had coastlines around the known Earth and we built cities along these coasts and we built ships to go to these different cities. And what we did is we carried knowledge and information and tools and things that were important for human progress from one city to another. Later, the Romans come along and they teach us how to build roads. So we built this road network all over the inland. We no longer just have to use waterways, we are now actually using roads. And we begin to carry this knowledge, this information and news and information about events and all of these things, we now begin to carry them over roadways. And later, we begin to have horses to do it even faster and carts. And then we have trains and we have cars and we have airplanes and we have the internet. So the actual evolution of intelligence and collective intelligence or collective knowledge initially, is a progressive curve because things happen faster and faster. The more networks we create, the faster we can tell things to each other. There's an interesting thing in nature that teaches us how information can be moved around. For example, aspen trees, they have roots that grow in the ground many kilometers far out to meet the roots of other aspen trees, to tell these trees where there is best nutrition and water found so that these aspen trees can grow their roots in that direction. They're actually exchanging information over roots. Now let me go to an example. It's one of my favorite examples, not original to me. I read it somewhere, but it really resonated with me. Let's say you go tomorrow to Heathrow. I don't know Heathrow. Maybe you go to another airport. You want your boarding pass. You have no luggage, so you take your passport and you put it on a screen, and the screen lights up and scans your your passport. And you wait about 3 seconds, and 3 seconds later, boom, here is your boarding pass. Now, that by itself is not so amazing, you know. But what's amazing is what happens within these 3 seconds. During these 3 seconds, literally thousands of networks, computers, and pieces of software are touched by simply you putting down your passport on a screen and have it scanned. For example, there's a computer that calculates how much fuel the aircraft needs that you're later on going to travel on. Another one will make a check on whether or not you are suitable going on that aircraft. Maybe it goes to the United States, and whether you clear through an anti-terror database. Another one perhaps calculates how much LT3 containers can be loaded on an aircraft, given how much luggage is going to be based on you are now boarding this aircraft, and so on and so on. There are thousands of things that are being touched, flight control, and many other things. All of these pieces are programmed by different people, by different companies, by different instructions. They have perhaps some kind of a standard, XML or whatever we use, but these are completely different pieces of reactive machines. They react to something in some structured way that we could call intelligent, that we could call predictable. So when we look at how the world evolves around us, then we find out that this example with the boarding pass that is coming out and calculating all of these things that are relevant to our travel is only the beginning. In fact, today we are already living in a world in which everything merges together. The layer of finance and banking, the layer of security, the layer of news distribution, the layer of social interaction, Facebook, for example, all of these things. And they're all working together. Today, you can use your login in Facebook, to get even into many accounts on the internet, into many logons that have absolutely nothing to do with Facebook. Or you use your Google or whatever, your Microsoft credentials. Everything begins to talk to everything, everywhere, all the time. Now, if you were really positive and if you were really believing that all of this is going to go very smoothly into the future, we are wrong, unfortunately, because some very unsettling things will happen very soon. Now, the positive thing is that everything is going to work together. and everything is going to lean on each other. Everything is going to feed off each other. So it is a collective behavior. But that collective behavior also creates collective transparency. And collective transparency is going to let us see for the very, very first time the world without the fig leaf in front of us. It will actually let us discover what really happens in this world, how this world really works. We will, for example, begin to understand how we are affected by less than 1% of the people controlling nearly 80% of all resources on this planet. A lot of people will be able to talk about that, as they already do, and reject the old norms, reject the old ways of how we do things. Collective intelligence will be the death of the middleman. There won't be any more middlemen in a very, very short time. Yet the world today, based on what we have created, especially the last 300 years, is all based on middlemen. The banker is a middleman. The salesman is a middleman. Marketing is a middleman thing that we use all the time. In the future, there will be none such things. Why? Because there is the law of efficiency of systems. That means every system that has some degree of intelligence will migrate towards absolute efficiency. If that is true, then we, with absolute certainty, will not have tomorrow money, salesmen, bankers, financial markets, and a number of other things. Probably not even politicians. Probably not even governments. Because governments are an obstruction of efficiency. They do not give us efficiency. Money is an obstruction of efficiency. Financial systems are an obstruction. They're not an enablement, they're an actual obstruction. How do I know that? Very simple. Imagine there were no money. Imagine we never had invented money. But we as collective humans would want to go on with our daily life. We want to eat bread, we want to wear clothes, we want to do things. Humans are curious, humans are creative. They will continue to create, they will continue to do things, they will continue to plant the seeds, to have the wheat, to grind it into flour, to bake the bread, to distribute it. All of these things will still happen, they will still continue. We just don't have this obstruction of money in between, which is actually an obstruction of efficiency. And so is marketing, so is all of these other things. So in the emergence of global intelligence, we also will be connected directly, every consumption point to every production point. All of the stuff in between will disappear. Obviously, this is not going to happen smoothly. It's a process that will happen over probably 20, 30, 40 years. It will happen to accelerate right now very much. And how do we see the early fruits of it? If you record, or would have, like we have, for example, started to record about 30 years ago, every occurrence of social unrest in the world, and you would count the hours or the days in which social unrest took place in the world, you would see an extreme rising exponential curve in the last 10 years. It was a rising curve all the time, but now it really goes up. We are actually moving towards a social revolution in the world, which is a result of this emerging global common collective intelligence, that total awareness that we all have. We have it implemented as a technology or technological components, but on top of that, we riding and we getting fed by these technologies. Today, I don't need CNN any longer. I don't need BBC. I don't need the big for news corporations to cook my news. I can actually go out and I can get news exactly from where it occurred. I can read the Facebook pages of someone that lives somewhere in Iraq or in Syria or in Saudi Arabia or in the United States or wherever. And I can actually have access now to eyewitness accounts that I choose. And I can go to YouTube and I actually can see with my own eyes things that people see far away from me that are not organized and pre-cooked by some news corporation, so to be packaged for my consumption properly. So we are now building this awareness of there is something really wrong in this world. There is something not working. It's not really the way we want it. It's not really what we're being told. We just don't want to drink the Kool-Aid anymore. We want to know what's really going on. And this emerging collective intelligence is an enabling factor. And so obviously it will lead to a number of revolutions. Now, can you imagine if we had never had talked about global warming and the rising levels of CO2 gases? Would we ever have gone and started to build electric cars or hybrid cars? Probably not. It was the collective recognition that there is something really wrong what we are doing, really wrong. And as a result of that, we now pushed industries to change, to build electric cars, hybrid cars, and so on. In 15 years from today, there will almost be no car on the road that uses gasoline. How do we know this? All we have to do is look at the car companies and see what they are developing. There's very little money now going in to develop motors, but there's a lot of money going in to develop lightweight cars, electric engines, long-lasting batteries, carbon fiber baking technologies to bring down the price of carbon fiber. That's where everyone is going to invest money right now. Why do we do that? Because it is a feedback of this collective intelligence that we have. So our world will be significantly transformed in the next 20 to 50 years, and especially in the next 10 to 15, because we are just at the dawn of this collective intelligence and how we are absorbing it. There's one other factor. In the last 6-7 years, we have made tremendous progress in building intelligence that actually creates its own intelligent agents, its own intelligent proliferation. For example, at MIT today and in IBM, there are computer systems built that are infinitely smarter than humans. Infinitely. We always said, oh, we the humans are the smartest thing on this planet. That is news from yesterday. If you still believe that, get over it. It's no longer true. Google today deploys software which writes its own software. A lot of the software that is out there in the internet used by Google or deployed by Google is not written by a human. It's written by a computer. So we are already going not only in the research laboratory of MIT or IBM, going to these processes to build very, very intelligent processes, but they are already out there commercially. They're already being used. They're already being part of our life. Now, this progress will obviously not end. It will accelerate. It will deepen. It will broaden. And what it will do is it will make our desires and it will make our trends that we are after more efficient. It will broaden them, accelerate them, make them stronger. Now, obviously, these developments are not always going linear, because when people understand, or groups of humans understand, that controlling part of that process will advantage them dramatically, there will be a fight going on. Who is going to control what? Who is going to do what? Now, about 10 years ago, I gave a speech and I said, I think in the future we will not elect politicians, we will elect software. And everyone was laughing. Nobody believed that. No? Today, when I say that in my talks, people begin to think, because instinctively they know it's true. Instinctively they know that no human in this very, very complex world that we are living in, no human is like these super kings of the Middle Ages, that came out and said, I'm the smartest and greatest king, and I know how to rule you, and I will, do everything correctly for you. We know that is all not true. We know that all these people actually running, that we are electing, they have no clue how to run the world. All they know about is how to get elected. Once they're finally in their chair and they're supposed to do something, oh, wow, now I'm elected. What am I going to do now? I better call some consultants to help me, to figure out some foreign policy or some economic policy or some educational policy or healthcare or whatever have you, because these people have no clue. So why should we keep on going? This is not efficient. Why should we keep on going electing people when we could set up supercomputer programs that could actually work out for us how we are going to have things and want them? So in the future, what we probably will do is we will not have a system of democracy, we will have a system of consensus, in which we all come together and we say, now, let's see, what can we all agree on? Do we want clean water? Yeah? Do we want clean water? Everyone wants clean water here? Yes. Good. Boom. Here, put that in the computer, want clean water. Huh? We want sufficient food. Yeah? Okay, let's put that in. So, we going to start to agree on things that we want, rather than focus on our disagreements. That's after we go into this revolutionary phase that's probably will take place in the next 15, 20 years. Beyond that, we will actually start to come together and we will focus on what it is that we want collectively. And we will let these intelligent machines figure out how do we compromise things that are competing with each other. How do we compromise them in such a way that everyone has the best possible compromise scenario of what they want? That's where emerging collective intelligence will be probably in 25 to 30 to 40 years from now. So we will make in your lifetime here, most of us or most of you here are fairly young still, in your lifetime you will see a dramatic change in how this world runs, and you will see whole branches of industries disappearing, whole branches of professions disappearing, and new ones emerging because of this emerging intelligence. And so now that I said a lot of very controversial things, I hope I did, we, I think, should discuss the subject and see where we go with it.